Okay, so they can hear you loud and clear? Cool, all right.
Let's do it.
Well, shoot, let me take this off. Superman, got to turn into Superman here. I'm just taking my, Perry can't see me, so I got to describe some stuff sometimes. It's like on the radio. So let's get started. I wanted to start off. This is our first one. We're going to go over, just kind of let you know what we're doing in this video to everybody out there. This is kind of an experiment. It's funny, this is an experiment. We're going to be talking about experiments. So as you can see, we got on about 10 to 15 minutes early. And Technobugs, you put a baseball, softball coach, and you combine them with technology, and things tend to go crazy and get buggy. And Perry and I are both not immune to that. So just going to have to kind of stand by here and have your patience and understanding. But I wanted to start this off. So the video is going to go like this. Let me start with that. So I got some notes here I'm going to kind of take a look at. So we're going to talk about, Perry, I want to start this off with a cool story that actually just happened last night with Carlos Pena and the Boston Red Sox hitting coach. And then we're going to talk about kind of what these next 6 weeks are going to be, how they're going to go, what we're doing right now, science versus bro science, is data science, the scientific method is a guide, tinker test, and then we're going to demystify launch angles. And Perry's going to be talking about what his research has shown and his data has shown. And then we're going to have a Q&A around 10:35, 10:40 or so. Let you guys ask questions. We're going to answer questions. And then we'll kind of conclude there. Okay, so that's kind of what we're doing. First of all, I want Perry. For those of you who don't know Perry Husband, I actually didn't get a formal, this is our first one, so again, being patient with us. I didn't get a formal interview from Perry, or for Perry to kind of say here, but Perry we've been the last couple of years since ABCA in Anaheim. This is probably, what, 2-3 years ago, Perry?
Yeah, I would say.
Yeah, we linked up. We had talked a little bit before that and linked up and got to talking, and just over the course of the last couple of years, we've really connected and been talking more on the phone and sharing ideas, and I'm using a lot of his stuff that he's talking about now, and then this last ABCA in Dallas, we really kind of hit it off. We spent a whole day pretty much just talking. It's mostly EV tunneling stuff, and then we talked some catapult loading system and whatnot. But I'm loving this EV tunnel stuff, and we'll talk about that in another live, Facebook Live. So some really cool stuff coming to you guys in the next 6 weeks. But we're going to play this 6 weeks as kind of, you guys tell us what you want. We have an idea where we want to go, and you can tell us if we're on the right path as we get through this video, because you'll learn that in this video. But I wanted to start off with let Perry share with you guys what happened last night. So go ahead, Perry.
Hey guys, yeah, I was way back in 2009. I did work with Carlos Pena, and I was basically doing his research every night. So he would face a team, and so we would have to break down every pitcher in their bullpen and break down all the starters and talk about some stuff that he would have to work on during BP, and then actually create game plans that he was implementing at that time. And during that time, it was about August when we got started. It was kind of late in the season. And he went, his batting average went up 25%. His strikeouts went down 25%. He hit a homer every 8.5 at bat. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say what we were doing was working. He was, at that moment, he was the Babe Ruth of Major League Baseball. He had more homers per at bat and more homers over a 3.5-4-year period than anybody in the game. And we had even taken that up a notch. But not only did his power numbers go up dramatically, but his chase percentage went down 2%. He was already in the conversation with one of the most disciplined hitters in the game at 20% chase rate. That's like in Votto and maybe Sin-Chu Chu, those guys. I'm not sure exactly who the leaders are at the moment, but that's where Carlos was really good at that, and we got even better because once he knew exactly what it was that he wanted to hit, he also knew exactly what it was that he didn't want to hit. So that was kind of our intro. During that time, Tim Hires, now the Boston Red Sox hitting coach, was working in the minor leagues with Boston, and we had befriended way back like in 2005. And Tim helped me do one of the coolest tests. We had 200 perfect game kind of elite players, and we tested them off the tee. We did some heavy bat stuff. We did some really cool launch angle stuff too. But the main thing that we did with Tim was a live reactionary test. We took all these 200 kids through this test where we gave them 8 swings to warm up, and we had a pitching machine that had the big video thing where the ball would come out of it, and then we could pinpoint the pitches. So instead of choosing 80 or 90 miles an hour, which is what they were used to seeing in games, we went to 70 miles an hour just to be on the safe side. And we geared every pitch in the first 8 to be away. So if you're not familiar with effective velocity, when you take 70 miles an hour and you move it around in the zone, everywhere you move it, it has a different reaction time because the hitter has a different reach in order to get to that pitch. So 70 middle away is really 68. So we geared them to hit pitches at 68. Then when we did the test, we gave them 8 swings, and we moved to middle end, which made the 70 mile an hour pitch 72. And then we elevated it up and in, so it was 74. And then down and away, it was 66. So we geared them to 68 miles an hour and to the outside part of the strike zone. And then when we ran the test, we threw everything but that pitch, meaning every location except for that location and at that reaction time. And what happened was pretty amazing. Guys averaged 1.5 hard hit balls on 70 mile an hour batting practice pitches, because when you gear them to a speed, they get focused on that speed, just like major league hitters do. And they once they gear to that speed, now when you start changing that speed, even minutely, you start to see guys be early and late, early, on time, late, early. We broke every bat we had. We made them use wood bat, and they broke every single wood bat that we had with the 70 mile an hour pitch. So what it proved was a couple things. One, the speed really does move around. When you move the ball around in the strike zone, it changes the reaction time. That was one thing. The other thing was that that hitters really do have an attention. We put their attention in a place by throwing pitches there, and then we threw pitches all around that attention, and we were able to make them early and late, which means they were in the middle of all that. So Tim helped with that process, and now skip ahead, when I'm working with Carlos, he's calling me probably like every, couple of weeks. At the worst, it was once a month, but sometimes it was a couple times a week. And just kind of pick my brain. I know you're on to something new. I know you're working with Carlos. Let me in. So we had a long, kind of a long process of getting to know each other kind of that way. And then last year he was the Dodgers assistant hitting coach. And so he was part of that offense that went crazy. And then this last season, he was the Boston Red Sox head hitting coach. And so he's doing game plans based on effective velocity every night. So that was the kind of the setup. And so last night I got a chance to get them both on the phone at the same time. Carlos wanted to just do some notes. They're doing, Carlos is doing a thing on MLB Now today at 11 a.m. California time. And he's going to do an effective velocity liquid analytics essay, and then he's going to have Tim call into the show, and they're going to go, so last night we had a chance to kind of go over some of the notes that they're going to try to cover, and it was pretty fun for me to be a fly on the wall in a conversation where one of my, prize students on the hitting side, and then now I'm turned analyst, and the guy that's the leader of the free world when it comes to hitting right now, their offense is the sure. So that was pretty fun. I know that was, I apologize for that long-winded description, but you kind of need to know the background a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and I thought that was cool, and I was on my way last night to get groceries, and I was talking to Perry about it, and that kind of stuff is really cool. Like Perry told me last night or today, it was just being the fly on the wall. I mean, not just the fly on the wall, but these two gentlemen who won, again, ahead of the Red Sox hitters, the head hitting coach, and what they did last year was ridiculous. And to be talking with him and Carlos Pena about your stuff. Right?
Yeah.
So it's not that you're,
Exactly.
it's like you're a fly on the wall, but they're talking about your stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. So, so this is a big deal. And for those of you who turn into MLB Live today at 11, I mean, that's in 45 minutes. And they're going to be this conversation we're having right now, they're going to be talking about the liquid analytics, at least in this segment. They've been actually doing this, Perry, the last couple of months. I mean, you've been working on scripts and helping with Carlos and stuff, where they're talking about this liquid analytics stuff. It's been, since we got back from ABCA, right?
Yeah, Carlos did he introduced the term. It was actually a term that came out a while ago. There was I did some work with Brent Strom with Charlie Morton, and there was a big article on ESPN, the magazine, on their website. And it was about Charlie Morton, and there was a really long section, really cool section, about effective velocity. And it was funny because Charlie Morton didn't even know what effective velocity was. Mm-hmm. So Brent, just kind of being Brent, just introduced it to him without scaring him, and just kind of saying, look, this is what we need. These are the adjustments we need to make. I don't want to have to go through a whole learning process. So it was pretty funny when I talked to the interviewer, Tim Keown. He was really cool. We flew out from San Francisco. We met in Burbank and talked for I think he expected it to go like an hour. And 5 hours later, he's sprinting to his plane because he fell in love with the whole concept. But he threw out, we talked about that term in our interview, and he used it in the article. So it's basically taking analytics to the level where when you become a black belt in effective velocity, you understand. I mean, the best way to say it is like the hitting guy. You'll hear those guys talk about it today. If we're facing Clayton Kershaw, then today Clayton Kershaw is going to do X and Y. He has he's gotten himself into a situation where he's throwing X amount of these and X amount of those, and he's throwing them at this speed. And so today there's a set of analytics that go with him. Mm-hmm. And from an EV standpoint, those analytics are very precise. We know exactly what to expect from pitchers when you look at a pitcher through EV eyes, or the EV microscope, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And so when you understand the very best version of Clayton Kershaw, and then you see today's version, you automatically have two different plans. And so on the fly, you're using analytics to help you understand the exact best approach as it's happening. So if Clayton starts off and he's doing what we expect, and we get a couple of hard hit balls, pretty soon he's going to make an adjustment. And as a chess player, we already know what the adjustment is because we know what the very best version of him is. And he can only do a certain amount of things. So as hitting progresses and gets more, what's the right way to say it? Gets more advanced, you create game plans that move with the flow of the game. Mm-hmm. That's the basic idea of liquid analytics. And it works on both sides, both the pitcher side and the hitter side. Right. So pretty soon, I think the game is going to get really fun on both ends.
Right. And this is something that Perry and I, in our long conversation at ABCA, we were talking about how can we get this out? Because Perry's been, by the way, put this into context, because there are some out there that are promoting his stuff but not giving him credit for his stuff. And they're saying it's their stuff, and then they're bad-mouthing Perry. And Perry's been doing this for what, 20 years? Has been teaching this for like 15 or 20 years. So this all roads lead to Perry on this. And we were talking about how can we get this out there. We're basically, in a good way, we're going to give this stuff out to pitchers. Perry's going to. So if you think, like he mentioned the black belt in EV, right? So if EV 101 is the basics, we're going to try and get out using my microphone too, my megaphone, is to get out EV 101, 202, and 303 to pitchers. Give it away for free. Get all the information out there. And that's basically what the others out there aren't giving Perry any kind of credit for this. That's what they're at, about 303. So we're going to give that all away, basically weaponize pitchers, give them a major weapon against hitters. And I liken it to those who've seen Batman with Christian Bale, where they have the green fog over Gotham, right? They release that green fog that makes people delusional, right? It makes people crazy. So the EV, think of EV as the green fog for hitters. So, and we won't get into in this video, maybe in another one, but the way hitting's being taught, for the most part, even some of the progressives that most of you out there probably have read or seen videos and stuff of what they teach, what they're teaching is leaving them vulnerable to EV. And so basically what's going to happen is we're going to get this information in the hands of pitchers at all levels. Now, obviously, the higher levels, the pitchers are going to have a little bit more command over their pitches. It's going to be more effective with the effective velocity. So little league is going to be kind of tough because pitchers don't have the command like they do at the D1 and professional major league level. But nonetheless, pitchers are going to start to tinker around and toy with it. And the hitters that are not being taught the opposite, the antidote, which is what we're giving you guys, what we're planning on giving our hitters, the antidote to the EV tunnels and how to battle it. So to put it in perspective, that's what's happening. We're kind of, what would you call it? Where we're going to cause pitchers.
It'll be a while before we get to that stage.
Yeah.
I think we're going to try to go kind of one step at a time on the hitting side, because without like it was kind of like if I went to take karate lesson and then got in a fight this afternoon, I'm probably not going to be very good at what I learned this afternoon,
Right.
So you got to go through some stages in order to understand it on the hitting side for sure.
Right.
But you guys all saw it last year with the postseason. The postseason was I think, a microcosm of what's going to happen this year. I think you're going to see Major League Baseball make a significant change in how much EV they use on the pitching side. And I think we're going to see the downside of that is that, and our subject today is one of the major causes, the whole launch angle concept. I'm not sure when it became a verb, but you guys started launch angling, and as opposed to just being a metric that says what the ball's doing off your bat.
Right.
But because of that craze, and because of what we see all over the internet, you see the turning of the barrel and trying to get underneath everything and trying to create that loop. And it's working right now because that's where all the pitches are. All the pitches are going downhill. All the pitches are showing up at a reasonably predictable speed. And so it's a target-rich environment for guys right now. So any hitting approach at the big league level that's even decent has a really good chance to work as long as they swing up and they swing at speeds that match what the down fastballs are all focused on.
Right.
If it's 96, I can guarantee you that all of the homers that happen in the big leagues, the biggest portion of them happen at around 91 to 89 effective velocity miles an hour. So that's 93 middle away, the average big league fastball. That's 95 down and away. That's a slider at 87. That's just slightly kind of down and in to middle in. It's an 83 mile an hour curveball that's up and in. So all of those pitches all equal the same thing to your mind's eye because it's about timing. They all kind of cross over each other. On today's show, Carlos is going to use a football analogy that I think is super helpful in understanding how that works. If you could just picture a defensive back standing out there, and the quarterback just runs his guys 10 yards apart, the defensive back just goes right in the middle, and because he can wait to see me make my move as a quarterback, and he knows which direction, and he has plenty of time to get there to cover either guy. So it gets complicated when we start going 20 yards apart. So now he has to kind of lean a little bit one way or the other. And then I go one guy short, one guy deep. Now the defensive back has a different job, right? He's got to back up a little bit because he doesn't want to get burned on the guy going long. But he's not going to get rid of completely the other guy. So he stays predictably somewhere in the middle. And that's what hitters do exactly. Is they stay somewhere in the middle and try to hit multiple pitches. And that's where what those guys will talk about today is that process. And so when pitchers are not EV efficient, they throw a lot of pitches that, I mean, if you can picture a guy just going out on the football field, and I'm going to run a two post patterns from the extreme sides of the field, but they're going to go right towards the middle where this guy's standing. That's kind of what's happening at Major League level right now, is all the pitches are coming really close to right next to the defensive back. So they're throwing balls right at the defensive back. It's just only a matter of time before the happy accidents happen. So that's the basic scenario. And so as long as that's happening, any thought process at the plate has a pretty good chance of working, because there's a lot of pitches that show up at relatively close to the same time, in the same basic area, at the same basic angle downward. And so you just swing hard and swing up, and you got a target-rich environment to get happy in.
Right, and
that's about to change.
Right, and what you guys have to keep in mind is what's your hitter's operating system, or when you teach your hitters, what's the main operating system? I've heard coaches out there, they want to decrease their hitter strikeouts. I've had other ones that, hey, I want to increase ball exit speeds. I want to optimize launch angles. I want to get on base more. So whatever your main operating system is, your hitting strategy is going to revolve around that. And what you have to understand with EV on the hitting side, and what Perry talks about, is that we're trying to maximize hard hit contact. Hard hit contact. So the problem, when Perry says that pretty much any kind of swing strategy out there, mechanically or whatever, is going to do okay in this environment, but in EV environment, it's not. It's gonna separate the ones that are their operating systems. They're looking at trying to get hard hit contact.
I'm gonna have to bow out for a second.
Okay.
I got a call coming in
from you know who? Carlos Pena.
Yeah, hold on.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll keep it going. So the idea of hard hit contact, this is what we're trying to keep in mind. So like what Perry said with Carlos when he was playing in, I think 2008 or 9, is that was the main operating system, was everything revolved around hard hit contact, a high percentage of hard hit contact. So that's what was driving every decision, whether it's mechanics or whether it's hitting strategy. That's what's driving every decision. So you guys have to understand that there's a huge movement out there right now based on making swing adjustments. So a lot of people, and me included until recently over the last couple of years, didn't like the early arm bar. And I think what most people don't like about the early arm bar is that when young kids do it, they tend to cast their barrel. But they get the cause and effect, they get the causal causation kind of mixed up, that it's not so much the early arm bar that's causing the bat drag. It's actually when the hitter's letting the barrel off the shoulder. So we use a lot of overload training for that and whatnot. But so again, that's an example of hard hit contact, because you're going to have a longer lever. Longer levers at the end of that longer lever is going to multiply the force at the end of that lever. That's just physics. That's engineering. That's how things work. So with this video, since Perry's on the phone here, we knew that was going to happen, by the way. So again, patience. That's a good thing. They're getting ready to go on air, and they want to just make sure, Carlos wants to make sure and the coach for Boston want to make sure that they got their points, their ducks in a row. But the rest of this, the rest of these videos going forward, just bring my notes up here in front of me. So again, just repeating, this Facebook Live is itself an experiment, okay? We're experimenting with this, and we want you guys to tell us where you want us to go with the information. Now, if you like where we're going, then tell us you like it. If you kind of want to have something else put in the mix, then let us know. But we're treating this as an experiment, and we're only doing 6 weeks. So every Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time in the same place at Hitting Performance Lab on the fan page, we're going to be doing the same thing but different topics, okay? So what you're doing, another point, what you're doing right now may be working. This is what I find on social media is a lot of people out there will come at my stuff and they'll say, well, you know, what I'm doing is working. But there's always somebody doing something better than you. And I know probably there's a lot of coaches out there that are even from some of the really cool stuff that my hitters are doing and Perry's hitters are doing, they're doing beyond what we're doing, right? There's always somebody out there that's doing bigger and better than you. So this process of what we're going to be doing on the show is finding out what the optimized is, and it's done by tinkering and testing. So what you're doing right now may be working, but is it optimized is the question. So you have to have a growth mindset. For those of you out there who have read my book, Catapult Loading System, you know about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. And you want to try and keep that growth mindset so that, hey, maybe what I'm doing may not be optimized, and what can I do to make it optimized? So we use experimentation, we use data and different things like that. Science versus bro science. So for those of you who know the Hitting Performance Lab, we apply human movement principles that are validated by real science, not because I said so bro science. So part of that science, of course there's bad science out there, but science in itself, the idea of science and the scientific method is to, one, you create a question. So you have a question about, okay, how can I increase hard contact, my percentage of hard contact? Then you have a hypothesis, you develop, okay, so I think, so based on that question, I think ABC. And then you have research and study. You look at the research, then you collect your own data, you do an experiment, swing experiment or whatnot, or you look at data and you kind of base off the data what you're finding, and then you have a conclusion. So it's not that every experiment, I might think that showing numbers versus not showing numbers to the pitcher, for those that know my teaching out there from the Catapult Loading System, one of the kind of the pinnacles of the system, that principle, is I may think that is the way to go, but if I do a swing experiment where I do 100 swings one way and 100 swings showing numbers and not showing numbers, and at the end of the experiment, and I counterbalance those, there's ways to do the experiment to kind of take out the warm-up factor and the not warmed up factor and the getting tired factor. And if at the end of it, and I look at my ZEP readings or my blast motion or my hit tracks or whatever, and I look at my power numbers, or really any of the numbers, you're looking at the changes, and it shows that showing numbers isn't actually optimized, that I actually not showing the numbers shows better numbers, then I'm okay with throwing away showing numbers. But that's not what I found with the swing experiments I've done. It's shown that showing numbers is actually far superior between 4 to 6 miles per hour bat speed. That's what I was measuring. I wasn't measuring ball exit speed at the time. But 4 to 6, on average, 4 to 6 miles an hour in bat speed increase. Now, there's certain limitations. We're going to go over that into this video of showing the numbers. You don't want to show it too much, and you don't want to not show it at all because you want the benefit of it. So there's an in-between. We call it the Goldilocks golden rule. But the idea is to use experimentation. Yeah, I'm there, Perry. Just finishing up the intro.
Okay.
Yeah, that's okay, man.
Sorry about that. That was Tim, the Red Sox hitting coach.
Cool.
Just trying to go over some last-minute notes. So
cool.
Very fun.
Cool, dude. Well, let me finish this up, and we'll get into launch angles real quick. Might not have as much time. I want to give these guys and gals, if there's some gals on there, I don't see too many gals on the call, but a chance for questions. So the idea of science versus bro science, is data science? There's a lot of people out there talking about that data, because I have all this data, that it is science. And it's not. Data is part of the scientific method. It is a piece of the puzzle. It is not science in and of itself. You use the data to corroborate or not corroborate your hypothesis and your question and your research and all that kind of stuff. Data is a part of the scientific method. It is not in and of itself science by itself. The last thing before we get into demystifying the launch angles, and we'll give it to Perry again, is the scientific method as a guide I talked about here. So tinker, test. So that's kind of where we want this to go. We're gonna, in not this session, maybe the next session, we're gonna go over a little bit more content. And then after that, what we want to do is we want to teach you guys how to create your own Petri dishes at home, swing incubators, whatever you want to call it, where you do swing experiments at home, where we'll teach you how to test, what to test. You'll have a basic evaluation, a control, basic control numbers, and then you're going to bring those into us for these sessions, and we're going to break them down, and we're going to give your hitter, you and your hitter or hitters, a blueprint for what to change and to come back with new numbers and tell us how it went. So basically breaking down, doing like jam sessions, tinker sessions, whatever we're going to end up calling it, and we're going to break those down and use those as case studies. So you could take any type, you could take somebody else's stuff out there, test it, have your base numbers, test it, bring it in, and you'll be able to see for yourself whether that is optimized or it's not optimized. So that's kind of how this is going to go. Perry, go ahead and let's get into demystifying the launch angles. We got about, maybe if you guys are good with 15 minutes of Q&A, maybe we'll go till 10:45 and we'll start the Q&A. Does that sound good, Perry?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, take it away.
Okay, so as far as launch angle is concerned, my thought process was, back in 2001, I did this video with Jay Bell, who was at that time he was a 17-year big leaguer, but he was my roommate in pro ball. We both got drafted with the Minnesota Twins, and he went to the big leagues, and I didn't make it. But after he had played for a long time, I had been doing my baseball school, and I'd worked with hundreds and hundreds, and probably probably 2,000 or 3,000 kids. I tried to exit velocity and launch angle concept, and it was really basic. We just took a target and we had him hit 10 balls off the tee, but the target made it precise. In other words, we were testing to see how good he was at being able to repeat his swing, and then also how good he was to at being able to hit a ball exact. In other words, we put the target 50 feet away, and at 50 feet away, the center of the target was somewhere around 10 degrees off the ground. And he had to try to hit that perfect line drive to get it into the center of the target. And it was about strike zone side. And I'll show you how to do that. If you're going to do it from 10 feet, you use, and we would, if I did it over again, I would use the circle rather than the rectangle that we use. But it was just kind of like trying to use the back of the cage.
Perry, I'm going to use the restroom. I'm going to use the restroom real quick. Go ahead and keep going. I'll be right back.
All right. So we wanted to test his ability to repeat the swing, but we also wanted to get a launch angle idea, because when we did the first part of the test, all of the balls that he hit, the first 30 balls that he hit, and we did 3 rounds of 10, the bulk of the balls were low left. And what that meant was that he was swinging up, catching the top of the ball, and doing it early. In other words, even off the tee, there's a timing. And when you hit it perfect, and your timing is perfect, then it goes exactly in the line that you want it to go. But as soon as you are early or late, then you pull the ball or you push the ball away from the center of the target. And if you're underneath, then you hit some type of a fly ball. And when you're over top of the center, you hit some kind of a ground ball. And so when he was hitting his ground balls, it was a really great evidence as to what was happening in his swing. So in golf, which is where that concept comes from, you can literally look at the player and kind of eliminate the player and just watch the ball flight. And when the ball flight, whatever it does, it's absolutely a cause and effect. So whatever direction the ball starts, that's the direction the club was swinging. So if I'm a right-handed golfer and I hit the ball right of my target, then that means I swung the club right of my target along that line. And then whatever the ball does in the air, it either hooks or it fades or it stays straight. So there's only 9 possibilities when you hit a golf ball. Assuming you hit it on the club face at all. If you hit a golf ball, it can only go in 9 directions. And so by looking at the ball flight, it tells you a lot about what caused that in the player's swing. So I spent like 4 or 5 years, almost 5 years as a golf pro after I got out of baseball. And that's where I learned the precision of looking at swings. Because in golf, everything is precise. If you are not precise, you're 1 degree or 2 degrees off at impact, you're probably going to be really close to being out of bounds. So there's no foul balls in golf. You have to play every shot.
Right.
So it's precise. And so with what I tried to do was to bring that to baseball. And with our test with Jay Bell, that's what using the target does, is it makes it precise. It gives us a perfect spot to hit every ball. And now we can measure off of that spot, early and late, and up and down. And so that was the basic idea of what we did with Jay Bell. And then when we did the live, there was no such thing as exit velocity on live pitched balls. So we had to make it up. So we had 4 or 5 baseball pros that were there as judges. And then Jay he was a 2-time All-Star, so he knew his swing and he knew when he hit a ball well. So he had a say in it. So every ball that was hit, we drew in this 10-degree line. So if the ball was hit perfectly, it was going along that 10-degree line. If he missed it a little bit underneath, it would go higher than that. And so we ranked them, 5 being perfect line drive, and then a 4 was a ball that was either just above that or just below that within 10 degrees. And then a 3 was a ball that was within about 20 degrees up or down. And so a 2 would be a pop-up in the outfield, for example. A 1 would be a pop-up in the infield. And so if you can just imagine like a side view of ball flight from a typical batting cage scenario, when a player hits a pop-up in the infield or a dribbler that wouldn't leave the infield, that's a 1, either way, up or down. And so we ranked them. And if he hit a ball that was a 4, that was a high line drive, let's say, and he smoked it, then it stayed a 4. If he hit it on that trajectory, but he didn't crush it, it became a 3. So the trajectory angle is what we called it. It was launch angle plus an estimated exit velocity. So we wanted to find out how pure that ball was hit, how perfect that ball was hit. And so in the first round, his launch angle was, as we could have predicted after the tee, was a ground ball. And so his average hit, if you add them all up, would have been like a minus in that launch angle thought process, a little less than 0 degrees. And so when we started working with him, that was the first thing that we tried to get him to adjust, was to get the swing line in line with the pitches so that when he flushed it and hit it perfect, it was going to go at 10 degrees, knowing that he's going to miss it way more times than he's going to hit it. That's probably one of the most crucial things to make a note on, is launch angle is not about the ball being hit perfect. And that's where a lot of guys have gone wrong in trying to hit perfect 30-degree launch angle, knowing that when you hit it good, it's going to be a homer. The problem is you only hit it good about 1 out of 10 times, really good. And so what happens to those other 9 balls? And the answer is, no matter what you do with round contact, round ball, round bat, there's only 3 possibilities if you make contact. 1 is that you hit it perfect, center on center. 2 is that you get underneath it a little bit or a lot. And 3 is you get over the center and hit a ground ball a little or a lot. And so those are the only 3 possibilities, is that you're going to hit a perfect line drive, a perfect contact, or some kind of a miss. And the misses happen a huge amount of the time. In fact, it's almost all about the miss and almost nothing about the ball that you hit perfect, because it just doesn't happen all that often. Aaron Judge in 2017 hit 1 ball at 122 miles an hour. That's his absolute 100-100 100% hardest ball was 122 miles an hour. Hit 13 balls at 95% of his max. 13 out of how many 500 at bat. And he hit 53 at 90% of his max. But his overall max of all balls in play is about 75%. Meaning, he's missing every ball except for that one. The one was the only one that he hit absolutely perfect. And then he hit some near perfect, and then he hit some semi-near perfect, and then all the rest were kind of awful. I mean, his awful is pretty good, but at the end of the day, when we're talking about precision, you have to look at it like that. And so this is probably the most important thing I'll say about launch angle is it's not about hitting it perfect. It's about the miss that happens. So when you try to hit the ball perfectly at 10 degrees, you know you're going to miss 4 balls up on average, and you're going to miss 4 balls down. But when you're on the right line, those 4 balls up that you hit all have a chance to be a homer. And the 4 balls down all have a chance to be a 100-mile-an-hour ground ball. And I want to share 2 more things with you in regards to Major League Baseball. We've all been told that ground balls suck, they're terrible, don't do them. Stay away from ever hitting a ground ball. All fly balls are better than ground balls. So I did a study, and I looked at 100-mile-an-hour ground balls, because when you just miss it and you hit a ground ball, it's 100 miles an hour plus at the big league level. And when you look at those ground balls, the average, there were 211 hitters last year that averaged over 400. Between 400 and 750 was the batting average on 100-mile-an-hour ground balls in the big league. So the mean was somewhere around 550. So when you just miss a line drive and you hit a ground ball, at the big league level, you're hitting over 500 in general. So that part of the test was like, what? That shouldn't happen, because they said their version of data said ground balls suck, even the hard ones. We don't want to hit them ever. Donaldson said, say no to ground balls, kid. Don't hit them. Although he hit 37% of his balls were ground balls, just so you know. And if you take out his ground ball hits, he only hit about 205, I think, that year.
Right.
So he doesn't really want to get rid of ground balls, and neither does anybody else. The trick is to max them out. And so the other side of that study was I took all the fly balls that didn't leave the yard. In fact, I put it at 90 miles an hour, where the ball could still leave the yard at 90. And on 90-mile-an-hour fly balls, keeping in mind that 211 guys hit 400. How many guys do you think hit 400 on fly balls at 90 miles an hour or less? And the answer is absolutely 0. Not one guy hit 400. And only 10 players hit 200. 10 players. So when the ball stays in the yard and it's in the air, it's an out. And it's the reason that they come up with this data is they skew the data, they take out pop-ups. And most of the fly ball stuff that they do, they take pop-ups out. And they include line drive in the fly ball category. So when you're looking at fly balls, they're looking at line drives and fly balls together against ground balls. And that's why it gets so screwed up. But that's data manipulating it to make it look like the way they want it to look. And that's a problem, because that's not real. That's not tested. The reality is, when you're at 10 degrees, you miss the ball at 100 miles an hour if you're a big league player. And when you miss it underneath, you have 4 chances to leave the yard. But they're all misses. That's the key to the whole thing, is maxing out your misses. That's what launch angle, to me anyway, is all about.
Yeah, and Perry, this is something, again, for those of you that know me out there and the years have been with me and follow me, I wholly appreciate all the continued support. I will change what I do, but if you can bring me better data, I will change what I do. And this is something with our conversations, Perry and I, that I was all ground balls suck, and I still kind of do that just to kind of get a rouse out of people. But just like Perry said, that Now what I do with my hitters, and this is kind of practically how we kind of work on this at the cage, and this is something you guys can take away and take to the field, is I tell my hitters, I go, imagine the ball's coming in through a tube, certain tube off the ground. It's coming in in a tube. And what I want you to do is I want you to hit that ball, and I want you to send it back through the tube. The same tube that it came in on, I want you to send it back through the tube. And so what we did was, instead of trying to shoot for the home run in the double, hit the top of the cage, hit the top of the cage, what happens when you have players like Perry's just said, if you have players trying to hit the home run all the time, the misses, you're missing, what'd you say, Perry, 40, 50% of the time up? 40% of the time up?
You're missing approximately 4 out of 10. And this is not just me theorizing.
Right.
The big league data shows that about 20% on average every year are line drives, and about 40% are fly balls, and about 40% are ground balls.
Right.
It usually skews a little higher to the ground ball. Like the ground balls are 43% on average, and the fly balls are 37 one year. And the next year, it fluctuates a little more. And in fact, after Josh made that statement, the next year, for everybody trying to hit fly balls, guess what happened to the ground ball percent? It actually increased to 46%. They only hit 34% fly balls trying to hit fly balls.
Right.
It's unbelievable
Crazy.
to me. But
when you look at the data, it's crazy. And so what I was going to say is that if you're trying for the homer, now your misses are going to be even worse, like what Perry's saying. But if you try for like the Jay Bell study where they had 10 degrees where you had to hit that target. So again, I explain it as in the ball comes in on a tube. I want you to send it back through the tube. So if that's your objective, if that's your operating system, is all your hitters are shooting for that tube, the ball needs to come off the bat the same height that it's coming in. Now your misses, like Perry's saying, are going to be harder if you slightly miss under or slightly miss over. They're going to be a lot harder. So what I tell my hitters when we're doing live stuff in the cage is they'll hit one, they'll crush one on a good angle, and I'll tell them, I'll say, hey, in a game we'll take that, we'll take it, but in the cage we're getting back down to sending it through the tube. So if they can get really good at sending the ball back through the tube that it's coming in, those accidents are going to happen more often than if you shoot for the accident and they're going to hit more pop flies, right?
That's 100%.
Yeah. So Perry,
100%.
If you got any other closing thoughts on the launch angle part, I want to see if anybody's got any questions out there.
Well, we've covered a lot, but in general, it's exactly that. It's when you get the launch angle right, when you get the swing line right, and your goal is to hit it at about 10 degrees. And the other stat that I'm going to throw at you is when you look at like a whole team or one player for the entire season, and you look at where all the hits show up, they're somewhere between -5 degrees, which is those really hard hit ground balls, and about 25 degrees, which is a reasonable amount above that 10-degree line. And the reason is very distinct, and it comes right from what we did with Jay Bell. When you keep the ball within 10 degrees of that 10-degree line, that's your highest exit velocity, always, or within 10 degrees of the line that the ball's swinging. So whatever line you have the bat going on, if it's going up by 6 degrees or 8 degrees or 10 degrees, and you smoke a ball, and it goes exactly in the line at 6 or 8 or 10 degrees, then that's going to be the hardest ball that you hit. And any miss hit that's within 10 degrees is going to be really close to that. So all your max exit velocity is going to be in that 10 degrees up or 10 degrees down off your perfect line, whatever your line is. So when your line goes to 30 degrees and you're trying to swing up, and you saw it in last year's postseason not work out very well for Bellinger and other guys that were trying to swing up, it was a joke watching that try to happen, because the miss hits are still going to happen. No matter what you do, you're going to miss 4 balls up, 4 balls down. It doesn't matter. But when you miss them trying to swing at 30 degrees, those 4 balls up are all ugly and out, and those 4 balls down are not the kind of ground balls that guys average 400 or higher. So it's about the miss. That's probably the bottom line. But all the hits show up between about 25 degrees and yes, there's a few above that, the homers, but all the balls above that are out. When you look at those statistics the right way, all of the balls above about 35 degrees, with a few exceptions, are out. And on the ground, there's actually more hits happening between -5 degrees and 0 degrees. Those balls that are smoked in that line, those are averaging like 500.
Mm-hmm.
Don't let them tell you otherwise.
Yeah, ground balls are gross if they're soft ground balls. So if you guys hear me put a hashtag GBs are gross or GB suck or something, I'm just trying to get a rise out of people. But this is new age stuff. This is new age stuff that Perry's been doing for like almost 15, 20 years. And other people out there have been doing this too. I get people that will say, hey, we've been doing this for the last 20 whatever years. And so that's cool. That's a great thing. And so at this time, anybody has any questions, Perry can't see these questions, so I'll have to read them out, but just go ahead and fire them out. I don't know if we had any before that.
And I'm going to have to break sometime soon because the MLB show's starting.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I'll answer any questions if you got to get out of here, until we're going to be done at 11 anyway. But we got some pretty big firepower in here. I've seen some of these people commenting on some of my stuff, but definitely one of my good friends, Lee, he's on here. Jim Ambrosius, I know, is here for a little bit. I don't know if he's still on, but yeah, those guys are pretty high-powered guys. So any questions so far from the peanut gallery out here? And if we don't have any questions, then we'll kind of end here and encourage you guys to check out the MLB The Show.
Or email the questions, and I'm happy to. We'll cover them next time.
Well, you know what? If you got to get out of here, Perry, where can we find more from you? Let's do that now. So if you got to duck out, then we don't leave that out.
Go to my site is hittingasaguest.com, and trust me, it is on a bunch of levels. Hittingasaguest.com, and if you're involved in the show and you see anything that you like on the show, use the code EV25 for 25% discount for any one of the online video courses. Just make sure that it's one of the online courses, though, rather than there's one on launch angle, one on exit velocity that's fairly inexpensive, and then there's some that are a little more in depth. They're like 12-hour programs. So any one of those online programs that I have on my site, you can get a 25% discount if you're interested in that.
So EV25 is the discount code?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got that. I just put that into the chat so they can go to the website and they got the code there. One question maybe before you want to head out, we got from Joseph. Off topic, 12-year-old son is a switch hitter. His dominant hand is his right, but he feels more comfortable hitting from the left side. What can I do to get him to want to take the same number of practice reps from both sides? And then in parentheses, he's got, when he was very young, I started him hitting lefty only to see if he could be successful, knowing this would be advantageous. So what say you, Mr. Perry?
My take on switch hitting is number one, I want to do a dominant eye test to find out which eye is dominant. Mm-hmm. Because I've always believed that if your dominant eye is open to the pitcher, so if you are right eye dominant and a left-handed hitter, your eye is open to the pitcher more. Otherwise, you have to turn your head in a way to be able to see it better. Mm-hmm. So I've always been a believer that dominant eye is important to have open if possible. And when a guy is a switch hitter, let's say that my right eye is my dominant eye, and I'm a right-handed hitter, I would recommend that player try, because his best visual side, in my opinion, is, and there's no studies that I know of about this, so this is just my opinion, is that would be the perfect switch hit candidate. But my advice to them is you just become two hitters. Mm-hmm. So do you want to be a really good left-handed hitter, or do you want to be an okay lefty-righty hitter? And if you don't put the same kind of work in on both sides, and you're not that kind of player, then maybe we don't want to go down that road. I don't want to discourage it, but that's the reality, is that you are now two hitters. You're no longer one. Right.
Did you need to go, Perry? I want to make sure you got.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to head out, but I appreciate it, and I'm really looking forward to doing some stuff in the future. So this we'll make it a lot cooler in the future, I promise.
Yeah, it'll be a lot less Perry on the phone. You can't see him. You guys were all staring at my ugly mug today while I'm sitting there listening to Perry give his wisdom, you know. So next time you'll be able to see a nice little picture of him in the corner or whatever, however we're going to figure this thing out. But
we'll have some videos that make sense that go along with what our topic is. And
right.
We'll make it fun.
Cool. Well, hey, thanks, Perry, for coming in, man. Always a pleasure, but we'll be back again. I'll wrap up here, but we'll be back again next Friday, same time, same bat channel.
Sounds great. Thank you, guys.
All right, brother. Good luck on the show.
Thanks.
All right, brother.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Yep. Okay, so I'll wrap up. Also, one extra thing on the switch hitting. I agree with Perry. Same thing. You got two hitters. You have to put in the same amount of work if you want to be good at both swings. I have one of my best buddies I played with at Fresno State. He played some pro ball. He was a switch hitter. Did pretty well with it, but again, you have to put in double the work. From a movement perspective, though, even if you don't want to switch hit, taking swings from both sides is always good. It's always good to equal out the body and make sure the body is equal. I mean, I was a righty, and I'm still trying to fix my body from 17 years of playing of the hundreds of thousands, if not millions of swings that I took. Right-handed, throwing right-handed, and I didn't do it the other way, where we can't get away with that kind of stuff in the weight room or in another sport, right? You do 50 curls with your right arm and then you go home. I mean, nobody, not even the bro science guys in the gym do that. They make sure they can do both sides. In basketball and football, if you just in basketball dribble to the right side and lay up with your right hand or left hand or whatever, it's the same hand, same direction. The defense, when they get better, are going to push you to your weak side. So you have to learn how to do it the other way. I played soccer, was my off-season sport, and so I had to learn how to kick. I was a right footer. I had to learn how to kick left-footed because of the defense and because of an injury. Say I got a groin injury in my right side. I had to learn to kick with my left foot. So other sports will promote more of a both sides. You have to equalize both sides. But hitting, or baseball and softball, no big deal. I mean, Miguel Cabrera is going to be a stellar hitter by the end of his career being right-handed. Ted Williams did fine left-handed. Babe Ruth did fine left-handed. Mickey Mantle obviously was a switch hitter. You're not going to have too many switch hitters that are going to be out there. To me, there might be a little bit slight advantage to batting average or whatever with the metrics going switch hitter, but it's not a necessity in this sport that you have to do both sides unless it's to balance out your body. So just to wrap up, let you guys all get back to work, or if not work, then your Hallmark movies or whatever. We don't have any other questions that look like. So just to wrap up, Perry shared in the beginning about the liquid analytics, Carlos Pena, Boston hitting coach. Encourage you guys to go check out that video at 11 that's starting right now if you guys have already turned it on. Again, this Facebook Live is in itself an experiment. You guys kind of tell us where you want this to go. You can reach out at hittingperformancelab.com to me. You can email me. You can go through Facebook. You can ask me anything you need, or suggestions, criticisms, whatever. What we're doing right now may be working, or what you're doing right now may be working with your hitters, but is it optimized? We talked about science versus bro science. Is data actually science? The scientific method as a guide, tinker, test, and then Perry talked, I think, pretty good about demystifying launch angles. So we will do this, again, we're looking at in the future sessions, future Petri dish swing experiments at your house. We're going to teach you how to do that, and we're going to do jam session case studies on those. So you'll bring your data to us, we'll look at the data, and then we'll kind of tweak and things like that for you to make some changes in your hitters, and then you come back with the new data, and we'll evaluate that and kind of go from there. Again, you can find more about me at hittingperformancelab.com, whether it's you can find me on Facebook at that, on Twitter is Hit Perform Lab, YouTube, Hitting Performance Lab, anything like that. I didn't really have time to put any offers together like Perry did, but I will next time. But you can just go to Hitting Performance Lab and ask me if I got anything. You guys were on this call, mention this call, and I'll see what I can do for you. So other than that, I think we're done. I'll let you guys get back to your guys and gals, get back to your Friday, and I will talk to you later.
The Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know repeatable hitting power does not start in the hips? Have you heard the expressions, load and explode the hips? Power comes from the hips. Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that will show you how we added 48 feet of batted ball distance instantly and it's not all about the hips. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.